Today we're going to explore a topic that affects almost everyone in some way: problematic technology use, or PTU. Technology is deeply woven into our daily lives, offering incredible opportunities for connection, learning, and entertainment. But when use becomes excessive or compulsive, it can start to interfere with emotional well-being, academic performance, sleep, and overall mental health. This presentation will look at what is problem technology use and how it shows up through smartphone use, social media, and gaming. And as well, we'll look at the psychological and social impacts that come with it. We'll also look at the design features that make it hard to disconnect and share some stats and trends, and end with practical strategies that help manage and prevent problematic use. The goal of this presentation is to understand the impact of technology more deeply and explore ways that we can foster healthier and more intentional digital habits. Problematic technology use, often called PTU, refers to patterns of digital engagement that interfere with daily life and emotional well-being. It is defined by both a cognitive and emotional preoccupation with digital content. Many individuals with PTU experience persistent thoughts about being online and may feel anxious or overwhelmed when they're disconnected from their devices. Key features of PTU include emotional preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms, tolerance, and conflict. And these patterns are evident across smartphones, gaming platforms, and social media. When individuals are unable to access technology, they may experience feelings of irritability, restlessness, or heightened anxiety, which is often intensified by the fear of missing out, commonly known as FOMO. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable to these patterns, frequently checking their phones or social media compulsively, even when they intend to stop. This strong psychological pull highlights how deeply digital technologies can shape daily behavior, emotion, and attention. To better understand the scope of the issue, it helps to look at how common these behaviors are. Recent data from CAMH shows that 94% of students use social media every day, and nearly 23% spend more than 5 hours per day on these platforms. Another study showed that 89% of adults say that they check their phones within the first 10 minutes of waking up, and more than half report checking their devices constantly due to FOMO. Research also links excessive internet use with higher levels of depression, anxiety, stress, emotional dysregulation, poor self-esteem, and poor self-control. Over time, an increased dependence leads to tolerance, where tech users require longer periods online to feel satisfied, which then negatively impacts emotional, social, academic, and family functioning. Problematic internet use is especially common among university students and is associated with impulsivity, depressive symptoms, and a low parental involvement. Interestingly, though, the research shows that those who use the internet moderately, this is identified to be 1 to 2 hours per day, report the highest levels of life satisfaction, while both excessive use and complete avoidance of tech are linked to lower well-being. These stats show that PTU is widespread and that its impact is significant and measurable. 3 areas that we'll explore in a little bit more detail are smartphone use, social media use, and internet gaming disorder. Problematic smartphone use, or smartphone dependency, involves an excessive craving and overuse that can lead to serious psychological, physiological, and social consequences. Adolescents and young adults are among the most vulnerable populations, with consistently high prevalence rates in these age groups. This type of dependency is linked to attention disruptions, impaired academic performance, and elevated levels of depression, anxiety, and chronic stress. It's also associated with more severe outcomes such as sleep disturbances, suicidal ideation, and non-suicidal self-injury. Over 40% of youth report feeling unable to stop using their phones, and with more than half feeling compelled to check for updates due to FOMO, and over 60% have expressed a desire to take a break or a detox from their devices. Factors such as materialism and gender differences also shape these patterns. Males tend to engage in process-oriented activities like gaming, while females are more likely to use smartphones for social interactions. Neurological research studies have now shown that there are structural changes in the brain's white matter among individuals with excessive smartphone use, which illustrates the impact on both health functioning and brain and emotional well being. Social media platforms are intentionally designed to keep users engaged through personalized feeds, endless scrolling, and constant notifications. Excessive social media use is characterized by persistent preoccupation, a strong motivation to engage, and spending too much time online that it begins to interfere with everyday functioning. Research links heavy use with increased risks of depression, body image dissatisfaction, distorted eating, self harm, and suicidal ideation. Sleep is another major area of concern, as nearly 40% of adolescents are reporting the use of their devices within 5 minutes of going to bed, and over a third are waking during the night to check these notifications. These behaviors disrupt circadian rhythms, delay sleep onset, and reduce sleep quality, which in turn then impacts emotional regulation, attention, and academic performance. Adolescent girls show higher rates of problematic social media use compared to boys. And at the same time, it's important to recognize that social media can offer some benefits, which include connection, identity exploration, and community support. Its impacts depend on not only how much time is being spent on it, but on how and why these social media platforms are being used. And another form of PTU is internet gaming disorder, which involves clinically significant impairment in daily functioning due to the persistent and excessive use of gaming. This type of gaming behavior is associated with dependency, social withdrawal, and increased anxiety and depression. For many adolescents, gaming serves as both a stressor and a coping mechanism. Youth with problematic gaming patterns often report emotional dysregulation, conduct issues, hyperactivity, and peer difficulties, along with a lower life satisfaction and reduced pro-social behaviors. Academic performance often suffers due to poor time management, disrupted sleep, and decreased focus. Socially, gaming can lead to interpersonal conflict, isolation, and strained relationships. And an additional growing concern is the overlap between gaming and gambling, including loot boxes and in-game betting, which can act as gateways to real money gambling. And today's digital platforms are intentionally designed to capture and maintain attention. Algorithms personalize content to keep users scrolling, while sensory features like bright colors, dynamic visuals, and rewarding sounds further encourage prolonged engagement. Smartphones make this process even easier, allowing constant access. This accessibility also increases exposure to harmful content. For example, a study recently showed among psychiatrically hospitalized youth, nearly 15% reported viewing suicide-promoting content, and over 16% accessed self-injury material within 2 weeks of admission. Such exposure can deepen emotional vulnerabilities and increase risks for self-harm. These findings highlight why both platform design and content exposure must be considered when we're addressing problematic technology use. PTU has far-reaching effects on mental health, cognition, and social development. It's consistently associated with anxiety, depression, sleep disruption, lower academic performance, and difficulties in emotion regulation. Key risk factors include impulsivity, emotional dysregulation, insecure attachments with peers and parents, and environmental pressures such as academic stress and reduced offline activities. Research is showing that there is a bidirectional relationship between PTU and mental health. Pre-existing conditions such as depression or anxiety can drive individuals towards excessive technology use as a coping mechanism, which can then intensify these symptoms over time. This cyclical relationship underscores the need for holistic prevention and intervention approaches for treating PTU. And the understanding of PTU requires us to look from a biopsychosocial lens framework, which looks at how biological, psychological, and social factors interact with one another. Biologically, risk is highest during adolescence between the ages of 12 and 18. Youth with unsupervised access, especially in private spaces like bedrooms, are at higher risk. And gender plays a role as well, as males are more prone to problematic gaming, while females are more likely to experience problematic social media use. Psychologically, PTU is often linked to co-occurring conditions like anxiety, mood, or behavioral disorders. Low self-esteem and self-efficacy can drive technology use as an escape mechanism, and social factors such as family dynamics, peer influence, and environmental pressures add an additional complexity. Importantly, though, adolescents are not just passive consumers of tech. They're interacting with platforms that are designed to maximize engagement, shaping their mental health, their learning, and their development in very powerful ways. There are many different strategies and approaches that we can take to support problematic technology use. And one of the most effective ways to reduce overuse is to intentionally schedule and limit the amount of time spent online. This doesn't mean cutting it out completely, but rather building structure around when and how it's used. For example, setting daily time limits on apps or platforms can be helpful, and when you reach your daily limit, the app is blocked unless you intentionally override it. And this creates a moment to pause and reflect on whether continued use is necessary. Gamers can also set timers or use built-in parental controls on consoles to limit playtime. And scheduling designated scrolling time or gaming time can help turn technology use from something impulsive to something intentional. Accessibility plays a huge role in how often we check our devices. It's easier to grab your phone or to open an app, and you are more likely to use it without thinking. A powerful strategy is to make your devices less accessible, to reduce during only certain times of the day. This might be avoid charging your phone next to your bed, but keeping it in another side of the room or even in an opposite room in the house. For gaming, this might be meaning that you are storing your gaming consoles in shared spaces instead of in bedrooms. And when we fill our time with offline activities that bring joy, connection, and accomplishment, technology becomes less dominant in daily routines. Encouraging alternative hobbies that can be natural and sustainable is a great way to reduce reliance on devices. And in addition, we look at mindfulness strategies, as mindfulness involves paying attention to your internal state, your emotions, your urges, and your behaviors in the moment. When we apply mindfulness to technology use, it means that we're noticing what's happening before we're opening our phone or our tech, before we're launching an app. If you find or notice yourself reaching for your phone every time you feel bored or anxious, this is a moment where you can pause and acknowledge that feeling before taking action. Focus modes or do not disturb settings can also create mindful pauses throughout the day. And social media users might be able to set reminders to check in on themselves and asking yourself, am I feeling better or worse right now after the content that I've consumed? This self-awareness helps to build intentionality around the content that we're consuming. Another strategy is digital detoxes. A digital detox isn't about permanently giving up devices, but it's about creating structured breaks from tech and to resist habits and giving our brains time to rest. It could be an example of taking a 1-hour break each evening where phones and screens are set aside, or perhaps a full tech-free day. The goal is to establish a healthy baseline and to break the cycle of constant engagement with technology. For children and adolescents, how technology is used is often just as important as how much it's being used. Co-viewing, so using media alongside youth and talking about it, can support healthier digital habits. This might look like parents watching videos together on social media or playing video games with their children, using the opportunity to talk about what they're experiencing or seeing. So, for example, discussing unrealistic beauty standards that are seen on social media or discussing the in-app game purchases in games can build critical thinking skills, which is especially important for the developing brain. Parental controls on iPhones or gaming platforms can also help guide and not just restrict youth engagement on tech. And in addition, we can look at ways that we can reduce multitasking. Multitasking online, so jumping between tabs and apps or screens, can drain our focus and increase our stress. Reducing multitasking improves productivity and decreases the sense of being always on. Practical steps include limiting the number of apps or browser tabs open at once, or using things like focus mode on the phone to access only essential apps during work and study time. Designating specific spaces or times where devices are not used can create healthy boundaries between online and offline life. Common examples include making a dinner table a no-phone zone, keeping phones out of the bedroom overnight, or establishing specific hours that are unplugged during family time or study periods. This is shown to be especially effective at bedtime, where reduced device exposure improves sleep quality. And in gaming, no console bedrooms or fixed end times can prevent late night playing sessions. And lastly, we look at ways of turning off notifications because notifications are designed to grab our attention and to create a sense of urgency, which often pull us back into these apps unnecessarily. Turning off non essential notifications is a simple and powerful step to reduce compulsive checking and is shown to lower anxiety. All of these strategies aren't about eliminating technology completely, but rather about regaining control over when and how it's used. By setting boundaries, making small changes to accessibility, and building intentional habits, we can reduce compulsive patterns of tech, supporting mental well being, and foster a healthier balance between our online and our offline lives. Problematic technology use isn't simply about how much time people spend online, but rather it's about how digital engagement impacts emotional, cognitive, and social functioning. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable to the psychological factors, environmental influences, and persuasive platform designs that make it difficult to disconnect. As we reflect on this content and presentation, I encourage everyone watching to check their own screen time and consider how it aligns with your own personal well being and goals. And even taking small steps, such as turning off non essential notifications, creating no phone zones, or taking short digital breaks, can help reclaim time, focus, and emotional balance. By increasing awareness and applying evidence informed strategies, we can build healthier digital habits and support better mental health outcomes. Thank you.